then you can play for us. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, first of all, thank you, Anu, and thank you, everyone, for being here in the present moment with us. And just to share my intentions for being here and to being a guest on this beautiful initiative from you, Anu, is to get a bit more inner peace and to know our deeper self through experiences of others. So this time it's me, so called. So thank you. I'm gonna ask, can you hear me well? Can you see me well?
Yes, I can hear you well, see you well, but it feels as if the internet could be slightly better, or maybe you can come slightly closer, something. I don't know.
Okay, maybe visually. Do you need more light?
Yes,
Oh,
that would really be nice. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
this is better.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. So,
Okay.
actually, before we start, like with the story, because the story we're gonna have some time for the story as well. I would like to just offer something really simple, very short, with sound and breathing for us to in line together and to just before all the stories, all the words, all the emotions, and all that, to
Mm-hmm.
just 2 minutes do an exercise of breathing. So that will
Okay.
be an offering for you and for all of the participants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're gonna do something very simple through the nose. Okay, very important. We want to breathe through the nose. Very quiet breathing. Okay, very soft. Already start slowing our breath. Inhale from the nose and then exhale from the nose. And slowly just calm our breath. Make it as slow as we can. And we're going to pay attention to how the air is slightly colder when it's going in and how it's slightly warmer when it leaves our nose. And we're gonna do a couple of rounds of inhale 4 and exhale 6. So in 2, 3, 4, and out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great. Thank you for being a part of this exercise.
Thank you so much.
Did you enjoy it, Anu?
Oh, I loved it. My whole body was moving.
Perfect.
I've always seen that happening with sound. My whole body was like, it's an experience. It's magic. Thank you.
Great. Great.
Yeah. So, would you like me to do a question answer kind of a session with you, or would you just speak on your own? I'll
Well, we can start it off with some question and answer just to
Okay.
get in the mode, and then if I want to maybe expand on specific things, I guess go into story mode a little bit.
Wonderful. Could we have your voice a little more louder because people on the Facebook are having a
Sure,
little issue?
sure.
Thank you.
Uh, this
That,
is better.
yes,
This is
this is
better.
so much better. Yes.
Great.
Okay. So, could you take me back in time to your childhood, maybe to what your dad did, how your mom was, and where you grew up?
Okay, so I grew up in a beach town in Israel, so I was very near the beach, and my family used to go out to nature quite a lot, usually to places like the beach or like a lake. Here we have just one, basically, lake here in Israel, so we used to go there and just traveling. I did start traveling abroad about when I was about 12 years old as well with the family. So that was great. And I grew up near the beach, as I mentioned, and I started surfing, which led
पाकिस्तान
me.
में सब बिठो हो ना
So,
Namaste ji. आप कैसे हो?
oh my God, too much. You have to
Uh,
come to India.
I
So,
will. I'll come
yes,
back.
and we learned sound with you. Uh, I'm really, really curious to know, was your journey to sound even present then at that young age?
Well, the story says that my dad used to put headphones when I was in my mother's womb. He used to give me music to listen to through headphones. And this was like the 80s, like early 80s. So I used to listen to music when I was already like a fetus. And I was always really connected to different kind of African beats when I was young and all kind of music. I used to dance on the tables and stuff like that. And
Wow.
I started learning keyboard and piano when I was well, I don't even remember exactly, but it was about elementary school. So I learned that for like 3 years. I never really got the point of learning how to read the notes because music is something that is more like, and we talked about it, that music is like the language of God, that it's like something that it's very tricky for me, at least. I know some people are gifted with that, but for me, it's not very intuitive to read the notes and read charts. So I just looked at my teacher and I just played along and just followed that. But eventually I left that because it was very, deductible, very, very structured. And I left that in favor of deepening my journey into surfing. And later on, I got a guitar and started learning to play the didgeridoo, which is an Australian instrument.
Wow.
And yeah, from the didgeridoo, it all kind of picked up from there because it was like an overtone journey, And for those of you who don't know the didgeridoo, it goes like it's like a oh kind of a overtone wind instrument. They say it's the oldest wind instrument in the world. So um, yeah,
Wow.
from yeah, because that was a one note, one tone instrument, and from there you need to work on a lot of imagination and a lot of beat, and there's quite a lot to expand into something very narrow. You need to put yourself in the music and not let the music tell you how to play. So it was very expanding for me, and
It's
yeah.
very, very interesting, Ortal. There are two people I've interviewed. One is you right now, and the other is my teacher who also taught me. And uh, it's so interesting. Both of you mentioned one thing very clearly, that being in the box or conventional kind of education did not work for both of you. Jan,
Hmm.
I mean, it's like Jan Zeiger is my teacher, and he said I could never sit and learn in a conventional way. And you
Yeah.
say the same, you could never sit and learn in a conventional way. And who
Mm.
says that conventional way is made by probably the human beings? But if
Mm.
this is really the language of gods, and which I'm sure it is, then I'm sure you're on the right track, and so was he. And so, take me through your journey of the surfing and what did that teach you right at the beginning of your childhood?
Well, it taught me in a sentence to never give up, because I was like a skinny little boy and I just went and had to paddle in storms and to go across, and basically after the waves broke, and to get to the peak of the waves where they actually start. And it was very, very challenging to go back and again and get washed in shore and then go back again and try the next day and come back home freezing because there were no wetsuits that actually fit me. So it was all too big, and it wasn't really effective. So it was very cold, and I used to come back with like white, kind of bluish feet and hands and palms. And it was very, very interesting. But I just learned that if you want to go out there, you need to never stop paddling. And that's something I learned from that young age, um, with surfing. And the connection to nature, I guess, is that nature, well, if you think about it, the sea is like the biggest nature on the planet. Like it basically covers most of the planet, and it's the biggest piece of nature, if you can even do that distinction. So when you connect to that big part that is as well liquid, it's water, and it's like us, we are mostly water as well. There is a lot of correlation with how the planet is built and how nature is designed. And when you connect to that big blue thing, something magical happens, because when the waves come, they are there at the present moment. It's not like come back later, or I'll schedule going surfing like tomorrow or next week. If the waves are here, you surf. And if next week there's no waves, there's no waves. It doesn't matter what's your schedule. So it gets you very into the rhythm, and you get to learn the winds, and you get to learn the forecast, and to understand how kind of weather works. And that's something very, very interesting, and I find it very useful.
And how does it connect with life for you?
Well, life is cyclical, and um, to never give up um, is something that you can experience many times, because it's not like you never give up once and then everything just goes so smoothly. It's like you never give up in a way that is also an accepting way. It's not like never give up and just struggle and struggle and struggle. It's in a way some kind of an acceptance, and in other words, surrendering to something, but still being active. So the very, very delicate balance in between putting all of you in there, putting the effort, putting your offering of energy in this universe, and doing that in a form that is active yet not suffering, and surrendering but not being very resistant to life. So that's something very, it's an art form, I guess, and we learn to get it better every day.
Absolutely. So, have you had challenges in your life for which you actually used what you learned from surfing in your life?
Well, I guess that on the physical level, before the army, I used to go to tests before, because I wanted to go into. I mean, I wanted to do the best I can. That's something that is also something um, that I believe in. You want to try the best you can in everywhere you go, if it feels right, of course, not just you know, not for the competition kind of, not the competitive thing, but more like trying to get the best out of a situation and to do the best we can do with our potential. So I went to different tests and I never gave up. And I mean, we're talking about like just taking lots of heavy sandbags and just tests for specific units in the army. You just they wake you up on like in the middle of the night, and then you go and it's like mud and everything, and you need to take a sandbag that is like 20 something kilos on your back, and you're like 16, 17, something like that, and you need to run with it. And I was kind of this one of the smaller guys, and I never gave up. And that was something that I think I probably learned from surfing, because it's that kind of an endurance. Um, and of course it's mental, it's not the physical thing, because I never ran with these kind of sandbags on the and in the rain before. Um, and yeah, that was very helpful. And later on in life, when the real challenges started, because that was just that was just yeah, the teaser, it wasn't the real deal. It was just the yeah. And then in the army itself, we many kind of things happened. And
Could you describe just one incident maybe that happened in the army that really that really shook your ground and you stood your ground?
the first thing that comes up is um, well, there's a few things, but because I used to do lots of work on them, when I think about it now, I kind of smile and think, okay, which one am I going to name now? But I think one time I had to use my gun and like my rifle, and it was in a situation where civilians could get hurt, and I had to shoot, but I shot to the sky because I was just, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen that I'm gonna shoot someone, and that was enough to scare people off back then. So it was enough to finish that specific incident. Um, because that was, it's there's one thing when you are a part of doing something against people that are shooting at you, but if you're doing something and it could hurt like innocent people, that's a whole different kind of perspective. And in the Israeli army, they teach you to use your judgment in these kind of situations. I would say it works. You just know when to deal with situations in a better way.
I remember when I was talking to you, you said something very significant. You said, as an army man, you're lying down in a sleeping bag with all your
Mm,
weapons on, and then you come back home and uh, for maybe just one day of a holiday and find everybody's going on with their life. People are surfing on the beach, which is such a different
yeah.
scene altogether. It's like just like the music and the guns on one side. What happened to you when you were looking at these two contrasting stories going on parallelly in your life?
Well, yeah, that's a good story, because I remember there was this war in Lebanon. I think it was 2006, maybe towards the end of the year. I don't remember the months exactly. Um, but I remember that I was like a month there, and it was very interesting to see like I was mostly on the border, so I wasn't like inside a lot, but because I was nah, never mind. So the point is that you're there, and one night you're like there with your rifle, and you're looking, and you're scouting, and you kind of in the mud or whatever with your friends, and you're just looking out. And then I went out for 24 hours in the middle of that month, to get some air. Every one of us did that. Um, and I came back home and I was like filthy, with like my uniforms and my gun. You couldn't really take a shower before going out, and I was just like going out, and I go on the bus, and I see people on the beach where I grew up, where my home is, and everyone is fine. Everyone is like okay, and just at the edge of the country, there's something going on, and people are on the beach. And then I figured out that you can choose what reality you want to create. And when I got back there, I had kind of a cold, which is a really simple territorial conflict where it's really obvious, and something released inside of me because I was holding, and then I kind of let go of something. And it was kind of weird to come back. But then after that, it was the last time I went into a, kind of a battle situation, if you can call it that way. And I think I did one or two more trainings after that, and then I stopped. Like I kind of told my commander, uh, it's not you, it's me, and we're gonna have to end this relationship. And it was fine. I was like, okay.
Wonderful. So, Ortal, tell me, what brought you to EFT, matrix reimprinting, MetaHealth? How did you land there? I mean, what happened? How did you Was there a
Well,
compulsive need to heal some part of you that got you there? What was it that got you there?
well, I have to say that it was like a long cycle before it came to MetaHealth, and it started when I was younger and my dad got cancer. And at that point in my life, I was like very young, and I had this sense of believing in God. And then when that happened, or at least when I processed it, because he survived. Okay, he got like lots of chemo. He had like blood cancer, or if you can call cancer. Um, and he survived it, but then I was like, okay, if that thing happened to my dad, there's no God, and I had to leave that concept of God. And I was asking, like, from a young age, why people get sick, what's the reason behind it, because it's so random. It's just really random when you think about it. Some people are genetically okay, but they get sick. Some people are genetically not okay, and they get sick. And it's like, what's going on, really? And Bruce Lipton is amazing, and he really shared it with so many people that genes can be active or non-active, and it's all about the environment. So I discovered that around 2006-7, when I left the army. My brother, my older brother, he's just an amazing guy. He took me to a qigong lesson, like a workshop with a Chinese master when I was in elementary school.
Oh
So
my God. Right
yeah,
then.
and yeah, back then, and I went there. I was like really into that, really so much. It was amazing, and he taught me Aikido when I was younger. That really helped me out as a skinny guy, a skinny boy. Just dealing with different kind of bullies, and so I was very lucky because he was much older than me. He was really much older than me, because it's from another marriage from my dad. And just on time, he showed me EFT. Okay, and it was just when I was out of the army, and I started. He also, I think he shared with me as well the book, The Secret, back then, which was a good start to go into manifestation and stuff like that, and start to go into the mind, and even just goal settings, just to know what's your general vision. It really helped me out. I think with the EFT and that kind of goal settings, or getting some kind of visuals of what you want, is very, very helpful. Some people are actually making a career from EFT and the secret combinations, you know, how to manifest stuff and all that, which is great. So back then I got into EFT, and soon after I was like, you know, I had all the possibilities. I was a civilian after years of just being youth, you know, a teenager, then like army, which is like, I thought about it today. Very interesting. I thought about something today,
Okay.
that the army is a place where you can also relax in a way that people that didn't experience that experience can experience, maybe through what I'm going to share, that the army tells you very clearly when you can rest and when you can stress. Okay, because if you're training, then you're training, so you're out there and you're doing your training, and when you go back, then you actually can rest 100%. Okay, now if you're in a war situation, or I would say an emergency, then you know that it will pass eventually, so your body knows to deal with the stress, you know how to deal with it, you know how to do to function and even use judgment. But then when that finish, you can actually rest, and the time slots are very very clear, and that makes for the mind very easy, because you know that now you rest, and now you know you're not. So it's so clear, because now in life the the adversity can just come any day. You never know. But when you're a few years in a structure where they tell you what to do, when to eat, how to eat, when to stress, when to rest, it's kind of easy. You think about it yourself, as a parent, as a therapist, you know, it's like you have everything very structured. It makes stuff easier, right?
Yes, absolutely. Like you know that there is a system. You know that you can come back.
Exactly.
You know it's not
Exactly.
going to go on forever. It's just for 3 hours. It's just for 2 hours. I think the
Exactly.
routine helps there. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah, and in the army, by the way, they prepare you for stuff like that, because let's say, for example, you have a training and they say it's gonna be 3 days, but then it becomes 6 days. You know, like you finish navigation. You know, you're going, you're running, whatever, sunrise. You're sure it's ending in the sunrise, and then starts another like 24 hours of something. So it's like you never know when it's gonna stop, but you do know it's gonna stop eventually, because it can't go on forever. And that's how it is with life, because eventually it will pass. And generally, you can say that about life, not just a situation. It will pass, which for me is a very comforting thought, you know, it will pass.
It is. It may be a few years, it may be a few months, it may be a few days or weeks, but it will pass. Wow, that really sounds comforting. That really feels like there is the end and there is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it feels like that. So,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about, we were talking about love and saying, does that really exist? And
Wait.
you were giving me philosophy around it. So, let's talk about that.
What about love?
Yes.
But I just remember that you asked me how I got into EFT and MetaHealth and all that,
Yes.
and I want to answer that and go back to love, because it's an
Sure.
important one. If
Thank
it,
you.
yeah. So, uh, my brother introduced me to EFT. I loved it. I went studying EFT, and then back then it was Gary Craig and all that. And then I met the matrix imprinting technique, and I got it really hardcore into EFT. I used to tap myself like every day, multiple times, and just let go of stuff, because as soon as things start to flow, they just like, okay, 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 it's going, and you know, just tapping all the time. And I used to do a lot of Donna Eden energy work, and just let go of many many things. And that was a few years. It wasn't like a month. It was like a few years of endless kind of tapping, letting go of things. It wasn't like suffering. It wasn't like a hassle. It was more kind of I would say maintenance. Okay, like just a general kind of maintenance, checking out that I'm in a good vibe. And what happened is that a month went, and then a year went, and then a few years, and you see that if you're doing that on a cyclical basis, then you're not passing one day of being awake without doing some kind of transformation. It gets to a critical mass that eventually gets your outlook on life much clearer, much more rooted, and very, very self aware, and with a nature of giving. Because when you are released from a lot of your, well, suffering and inhibitions and all that kind of weight on your shoulders, or the way I like to look at it is like the sandbags of a hot air balloon, that you just let go of that sandbag and another sandbag and another sandbag, and soon you're flying, and it's really beautiful up there and you can see the view, and that's something I really like. um, and and you're much more relaxed and things happen much easier in life. Of course you will have your challenges, we all have our challenges, but it's maybe easier to cope with challenges that way. And
Have a strategy
after
for it?
what?
Maybe you have a strategy how to deal with it?
Well, I would say that first your you have a tool. Yeah. So let's say you're dealing with you're in dinner and something happened and someone says something, and that kind of gets you thinking about something that happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever, and something just emotional, not feeling very comfortable, and you're going, so I'm going to the bathroom for 5 minutes, I'm tapping, going back. Okay. Now I don't do tapping anymore, I have to admit. Um, but I had a good time with it for several years, and I did lots of sessions on different subjects and different kind of, chasing the pain and all that kind of thing. Really nice EFT work. And at some point I was like, okay, but why like, why people have this pain, why they have this symptom, why do they have this disorder or the other disorder? And then I found Richard Fluke through the EFT connection, and I got into meta medicine, and we were actually learning the same course. We were at the same in the same master course, basically, which was amazing. I mean, doing that work and starting getting into the CT scans and all that, where you can actually see how the body reacts to fight, flight, and freeze. And back then, I don't remember we talked about faint, but yeah. Anyway, very very interesting. And I was like, oh my god, there's answers. There are answers. The answers are there. Like you, even though it gives you like more of a base and a conceptual understanding of how it works. Like it can't give you all the answers. You still are dealing with people, and it's all very dynamic, but it gives you a very very clear outline, and makes it much more simple to deal with any kinds of symptoms. And from that point I was very hardcore, and still am, in the fact that we can heal from anything if it's the time to do so, and if we're ready for it, and we can deal with any kind of chronic symptoms if we are deeply fed up with it as well. um, so after a few years of not doing any sessions, I just got back into doing sessions in the last like 6 months, and I've been seeing some amazing results. By the way, with some technique I'm working on that actually is very inspired from something in the yogic tradition.
Okay. Wow.
Do you know the samskara? Like, do you know the
Sanskara.
term
I've heard
samskara?
about it, but
So samskara is a word in the yogic tradition that is referring to trauma, basically. it refers to a point in time, not just a big trauma. We're not talking about like a huge moment necessarily, but we're talking about a point in time where you got some kind of a scar that from that point you are now dealing with specific situations, or let's say it's a trigger. Okay, it's a trigger, and I realized that if you can deal with that energy on a very central level, like, because everything starts from something central, like you experience something you see or hear, and that raises up emotion, right? Um, and I won't go into the heart and everything, because the heart is basically creating all that for us to grow, and it's all like a big kind of thing. But in simple way to describe it, then eventually you get the central experience, which creates that little bubble in our mind and in our heart, like in the brain and in the heart. And dealing with that in that simple way can make the samskara go away. And I've started working with habits that are like a good yudin moment, which
Wow.
is not really a yudin.
Wow. So habits are good movement you're talking about. The habits being like,
Some of them, let's say you're addicted to something, right?
mm-hmm,
And the moment you got addicted to it was because you had a lot of fun doing that thing.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So it's not exactly a Yuden moment, because it's like maybe instead of being isolated, you actually felt um, a community kind of feeling. And maybe it was not dramatic, it was like comic, or like really kind of emotional good way, very happy kind of thing. And all the rest, I mean, you have it's not like you have a strategy, because it's not something that you actually need to solve, but it did give you that kind of trigger, that when you do that kind of thing, either if it's drinking alcohol or smoking something or taking a pill or whatever, that is some samskara as well. From the way I look at things now, it's something that actually got you scarred in a way that now you are looking to do that again, to re-experience that. Now, if you are fed up with that, you can go there, and of course it's not a trauma, but you can do something about that and burst that bubble, and then maybe you're not looking at that habit like you did before, and you can stop your addiction to something.
yes,
So I start getting some results with that, but people usually when they're addicted to something, it's a bit harder to let go of, and sometimes they're not really as ready as they might seem to let go of things.
absolutely,
But it works.
absolutely. So, Ortal, what is love?
Okay, yeah, back to love. Love is important, and I love you, and I love all of
I
you
love
here
you too.
online.
I love you
Thank you,
too.
thank you,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
thank you. But what really is love? Because I hear so much
Well,
about self love and this love. So I'm going
yeah,
to be
well,
very gross now. I know what I say is going to make people laugh, but I really ask you not to. Is like self love is like masturbation, or is it not?
no, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because masturbation is about pleasure, and
Hmm.
self-love is about happiness.
Wow.
Okay, so that's how I look at it, and I think it's the same with eating the cake, and it's about doing whatever you want to do that is harmful for the moment. Well, it's great for the moment, and it's harmful for your life. So I believe in happiness, and I do have the things that I like to get pleasure by. And if it's eating my mother's cookies or cake or whatever, or drinking that cup of coffee, which I do love coffee, but I know that um, I'm much better without it, and I do have a lot of pauses without and lots of detoxing. So I'm more into that happiness and less into the pleasure, because you pay for pleasure. It's like
Thank you. That's so important for people to know because this is the age of self love, and I don't think people understand self love. I think
yeah,
I don't think people have understood what the concept of self love is and what does it mean to really have is So I asked my parents a question. I asked my mom and dad on my when they had completed 50 years of marriage together.
Wow.
50, 50. Now, I asked my
Wow.
dad, "Is my mom your best friend?" And he
Okay.
said, "No, she is my wife."
Wow.
And I asked my mom, is my dad your best friend? And she said, "No, beta, he is my husband." And I got confused. What did that mean? What did that mean? So we often say we'll get married in India, and they say we'll get settled and we'll find love forever. But if 50 years of my parents' marriage hadn't made them friends and they still remained wife and husband, I wonder what love is. And so I ask you this question from that space. What do you think is love? Did you find it with your companion? Is it short lived? What is it?
Wow, that's a good question, but the thing is, and I'm taking again that inspired sentence from Eckhart because we did chat about it a little bit.
Yes.
So I found that the sentence that says, "Love is when you see yourself in the other."
Wow.
Um, that's something that is very profound for me because it basically says that love is not something that is just there uh, in you or in the other. It's something that is between you, and when you are not you're not separated from separate from each other, then love has a chance to be experienced because you see yourself like I see in you. I see that we are sharing now the same space, so we are basically now creating and being created in that now, and in that now I choose love. I choose to be here and to experience you and to leave all judgment behind and aside and not existing in anything and just being there, and then love can happen. And I asked a question a few months ago. I did like a post on Facebook. Is love existing even at times where we can't feel it? And the answer is of course yes. Of course there is no way that love is something that is only experienced by us and then it's existing. It's always there and depends on what we choose and what channels we have open in our heart.
I
That will
think the
determine.
voice is very low. So if you can make the voice loud, I
Yeah,
think,
maybe this
yeah,
is better.
this is better.
so so
Yeah.
so yeah, back to love, that it's something that we can choose to experience, and I think that we also need to look at the physical aspects of it. So back to coffee, right? Coffee is something that inhibits GABA receptors in the brain, GABA, and that is like the good feeling hormones. And when you take lots of stimulants, not just coffee but also, or maybe tea as well, then at some point you will feel less of very, very calming, very soothing, very relaxing and accepting um, frequencies and feelings because of the lack of these hormones in your system. So it's not like a very kind of voodoo-y answer, about love, and it's all like hippie kind of just hug a tree and you'll feel love. It's also maybe stop getting all this sugar and then you'll be like very anxious after it drops, and then also cut the coffee for a bit. You don't have to cut it all the time. I don't cut it all the time, and if I drink bulletproof, which kind of takes it longer to. Anyway, I also love biohacking and doing all kinds of stuff. I take ice baths nearly every day. I'm very into the Wim Hof method, by the way, if you heard about that.
No, could you explain that, please?
I'd love to.
Ah,
I'd
okay,
love to.
okay, I get it.
I love to know.
Okay.
It's like basically I recommend to all that see this to Google or YouTube Wim Hof, WIMHOF, Wim Hof Method. He's called the Iceman. I
Okay.
after several years in this practicing the technique, I have an ice bath where I work in my workshop where I make instruments, and
Wow.
it's about 1 degree Celsius most of the time, between 0 to 1. Today it was at 4 because I'm letting the ice melt away because I need to change the water, and it's amazing. It's like 2 minutes in ice water gets your mitochondria basically multiply or become stronger. It's just really great because you're doing like new cells in higher quality because your body is getting into physical stress, but it's also exuberating. It's like, wow, you just it's it wakes you up much better than coffee. Like if you, you go
Okay, guys, this is for all of you. From tomorrow on, in the morning, no tea, ice baths. No,
yeah,
seriously, absolutely.
seriously, it's
Yes,
amazing. I mean, people are healing from diseases that were from that, but that is a whole different story. I'm not going to go into why people heal from disease from doing the Wim Hof method. But it works on many things and it improves many people's life. It did for me, so I recommend it. So that's a little bit about biohacking and about that. We can talk about other stuff as well, like
yes, yes.
music and sound and
Yeah. So tell me, you have kids, you are married, and what have you learned from marriage and from the kids? Because you said
okay.
the biggest learning I know, my biggest learning came from marriage. My biggest learning
It,
came from being
it's true.
committed.
So first of all, when I met my partner, I was it just felt very right, very right, and it was, I used to play around with celibacy for several years because it was just too much energy that I just really preferred to put into my music, into meditation, and learning about the world and traveling. So it was not even, I didn't have a place for any kind of relationships in my life. And at some point, I got a little bit back into relationships, and I think very rapidly I met her. Her name is Lior, and she's an artist. Like, wow, she does crazy stuff. She paints, and she has hands, very skillful hand, and she's also um, she has a musical sense. She's not using it that much now, but she's really musical, and I just knew it's there, and I heard from someone, I read it in a book, that the best woman is the one that challenges you the most. It gets the Shiva out of you.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
like, because if your woman is just like, yes, and yeah, you're so nice, it's like your mother. You don't want your mother as your wife. you know it's
I
like
like
you don't
that.
want, yeah, you want someone that, she tells you something and you're like, okay, yeah, I love you, you can say whatever you want, something like that. And not always you can actually do that, but um that's the point. You need to learn from that, and she needs to learn from that. It's like this whole thing of learning, and relationships is definitely, for me at least, the next level, because I did kind of that trip of going into the mountains and the caves and in Manali, in a village called Vashisht, just be there for like, I don't know, a month and just play music all day, go to the waterfall, meditate, play again, and hours of music and hours of just being. Then relationship, it's like, now that's a challenge. Okay. And now meditate, and we have 3 kids now, and we live very near the beach for years, basically always. And my firstborn is a special kid, so she brought lots of challenges to our life, because she's now 7 years old, but she's like a 3 months year old baby in her functional body, but she's in the present moment 100% of the time. So she's an inspiration, and she's beautiful. Her name is, by the way, inspired from Sanskrit, and her name is
Okay.
Nayan.
Oh
Nayan.
my God, that means eyes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
from Ni in
Yeah.
Sanskrit. It's like, and she's blind.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
so that's like, but she's not blind in the spiritual way. In the spiritual way, she probably sees stuff that I could never imagine.
I can
Um,
imagine. I mean, if Dr. Kwesi was here today, who teaches about eyes, he often talks about we have the eyes, but we are spiritually blind. So you
yes,
just said the other part of it. She is not blind.
that's
She
so
is
true.
just not sighted.
Yes, yes, and she's beautiful, and it's an amazing life, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And I had a lot of adversity, and I went through stuff that, even if I just had to go through this to know that people can go over stuff like that and to be stronger, and generally to cope with whatever lives bring you. That's amazing. And I have two boys that came after her, and they're too healthy. No, just kidding. They're just really like all over the place, and they're beautiful and talented and funny, and they're just like, I just came back from my house, because now I'm not in my house, I'm where I work, and
Wow.
they're just like amazing. So I'm very, very blessed. I have a family. We live an amazing life in a beautiful kind of village near the beach. And my middle son is going to kindergarten, play school, whatever you can call it, that has no structure. It's only in the forest, in the,
Wow.
they do stuff there, and they have like all kind of amazing activities and connecting to nature. And going back to the love thing, love is not something that it's just there. You work on love every day.
Yes,
Okay,
you
so
do.
it's just important not to forget that, and to not neglect the people who are mostly important in our lives. And I've done lots of sins in that area as well, because I'm very passionate about my work and about my visions and about making instruments and about meeting people and diagnosing them and playing shows. And I used to fly so much and travel so much, and be out there when she's back home. And I'm sure that like every day I can do something better with it. I mean, with relationships. And I guess that when you have little kids, at least that's the way I look at it, when you have little kids, there's a time for everything. So now is most of the energy goes there. You can't, no matter how much you want to expand your relationship and to have these romantic moments and to go and have a weekend for yourselves in this beautiful mountain resort or whatever, um, you can't. You have to, you have the kids, and they need you, and breastfeeding and all that.
Yeah,
So
it's life.
yeah,
Life is
yeah,
not in compartments, life is flowing. And it doesn't
exactly.
say that tomorrow is going to be like you said. If it's going to be no high tide, it's going to be no high tide. And there's going to be nothing there. You cannot sit down and get angry about it. You just know that you can't do certain things on those days. Um, how about playing to Nayan today? How about playing music to Nayan today and let all the Nayans of this world get the music and get all the love? Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. All right. How long do we have, Anu?
As long as you want.
Okay, so I'll
I
I'll
don't
use
like
the
limiting time. I don't like the concept of time being the master. You are the
great,
master here.
great. So thank you. We are all the masters of time, and what I'll do is I'm gonna play for you a little bit on the pantam,
Okay?
which is an instrument I craft, handmade here, and we're gonna close when we're gonna close.
Yes.
with a bajin, which is a new instrument that I've had the privilege to get the concept of a few years ago. And we're gonna maybe end with a kind of before bedtime meditation with that one.
Wonderful. And I'm going
So
to split this recording so that the music stays on